These are things you have to take in your stride when you do things in India. And it's like Airtel Zindabad. Hmm. I have to.
Ah, there
अच्छा
you are.
chalo. अच्छा flip yourself, Aditi.
G, should I, what myself?
Flip yourself. I can only look at you like this.
Oh God damn it, yaar, ये क्या होता रहता है? मतलब,
It keeps flipping, no?
what a day! What a day
Oh
to
my
be
God.
bitching about mic check. What a day! What a day!
I think you should make this part of your startup. I tried to do it with Split.
That thread, I'm about to update that thread on Twitter right now.
Yeah, you have to. So, okay, you know what? We'll just go with it. Honestly, I think we should all just go with the flow. So, I'm going to start with my question. Please put your questions in the comment box, and then I'll just call on you and you can ask your own question, right? Okay, cool. So, my first question is the most basic question. I told my 13-year-old I plan to ask you this, and she said, "Why are you so embarrassing?" I said, "No, but I don't know actually the answer to this question. I really don't know how you become a comedian in this country. Like, is there a system? Like, I have a general sense for music. You might start with college or, college music shows, and then you go on to other things. So, first of all, how do you decide, like, this is something you want to do? And how do you actually start doing it?
Miss, so, I mean, I just wanted to also cross-check what is the general language constraints on this, because will this be watched by children?
No.
Because you know what, children's language is much worse than what I'm about to say. But Miss, I think that stand-up comedy, as I mean, I since I was a kid, I was a bit of an attention seeker, and then I grew up and someone gave me money for asking for attention, and that's kind of how it progressed. I would trace it back in a sort of almost saccharine Reader's Digest way to the fact that my dad, every evening my dad used to have his friends over, and all the kids would be put in another room, to go while the adults had fun and they would play music and stuff like that. And then kids ke saath basic battleship kitna kheloge, right? And so at some point I realized that if I said ridiculous, pointless, outrageous, silly, funny things, they would keep me in the room longer. Um, and that's kind of like how I got started being ridiculous. My dad has always been very funny. He kind of brought us up sarcastically. Like um, when once he had a back scratcher that he used to, that was like really beautiful. And I once was banging it on the table to some music. And he's like, Adu, kya kar rahe ho? Kya kar rahe ho? Itna lightly karoge to tootega nahi yaar. Thoda, matlab, put your back into it. And I'm telling you, in that moment, I was so confused. I was like, should I? But I think that's kind of where it came from for me on a familial level. As far as the industry is concerned, sucking the right dicks is the answer to, I think, any entertainment, any entertainment or any art, I think, in India is where you have to just like appeal to, three people who have money and who have enough contacts. And then they either pity you or then they like are threatened by you. And on the basis of that, you get opportunities.
Right. So entertainment business particularly, there is no system, there is no circuit you can do. Is there a comedy circuit?
Yes, there is. But again, Miss, wo naam ka circuit hai because it's one of those things where you have to hone your craft as well. And so on the craft end, there is what you call a circuit, right? The idea is that you start as an open micer. And the idea is my video is still flipped. Somebody, I'm just going to answer the end. So then this.
No. Yes. This is it.
Thank you. And so, there is an open mic circuit. You start with 2 minutes of 2 to 4 minutes is what most open mics give you. And in these 2 and 4 minutes, and most open micers when they start out, they're like, 2 minutes, come on, babs. Like, I need like at least 15 minutes. But then you like get on stage and then you realize like even talking for 2 minutes or trying to make someone laugh for 2 minutes is terrifying. And so you start with 2 and then you build up to like say a 5, and then you end up and now I think a lot of clubs have different ways to get in. So like some clubs will audition you, and then some will just throw you out in front of an audience, which I personally think is the ideal way, is that someone should just be thrown out in front of the audience and the audience gets to decide whether you're funny or not.
Right.
Because then that gatekeeping quality goes away, where there's some club owner who's like, trying to decide whether you're funny or not based on the other people that he's friends with or whatever. That becomes that becomes unfair. I think and when I started out, actually, to be honest, our ultimate boss was the audience. They just threw us out in front of the audience and they were like, do. And so we did. And our learning curve was very steep. And please stop me if I'm rambling.
No. So is the Indian audience generally kind?
Miss, and this is so interesting. This is such a good question because actually, on multiple levels, Indian audiences are still experiencing comedy for the first time. And I mean, because we have like what they say, like a 2% repeat audience, right? In a crowd of 300 people, you would have a 2% repeat audience the next day. That's about 6 people at max who will come back for a show within the next 1 week or 1 month. And so we have a long way to go, and we have like many, many new sort of audiences to discover. But the ones that we have, because they're seeing stand up for the first time, a lot of them are just thrilled to see something where someone is talking so openly, right? Where someone is calling someone a chutia to their face, yeah. When someone says something really stupid in your head, you're thinking, kya idiot hai? And then someone actually vocalizes it. People are like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so I would say actually Indian audiences are incredibly generous. In fact, I think a lot of us as comedians got into trouble once our sets started getting online, because when you're doing stuff live, audiences are very giving, and I mean they've paid money, right? They have bought someone they love. They found parking. They have to go back, drive an hour back. They didn't come to have a miserable time. They are technically on the side of the performer, whether it's the musician, whether it's the comedian, whether it's the speaker, whatever it is. And so I think Indian audiences are incredibly kind. And may I also add that I think Indian audiences in India are way more open-minded than Indian audiences abroad.
Really?
Oh yeah, because all of them are stuck in chane ke khet mein na. वो 1975 में देश छोड़ के चले गए, तो अभी वो मतलब मेरे देश की मिट्टी पकड़ पकड़ के ऐसे सौंधी सौंधी खुशबुएं कर रहे हैं वहां पे. And because of that, their kids also grow up चने के खेत में, thinking that this is that motherland idea. And so when they're confronted with what India has become now, it's very shocking to them. Of what India can be, it's very shocking to them. And so yeah, I mean, like, and that's why I get a lot more of the like, you are breaking Indian culture. Like, I mean, when you get desi galis, like when you get galis from the people here, they're much more explicit and much more like direct. Whereas the ones that come from abroad are much more esoteric. तुम अपने खानदान के नाम पे ऐसा धब्बा लगा के सर्फ एक्सेल धो के, there's a lot more like mental sort of absorption on their side, and then also what they project on you.
It's really funny because my boyfriend actually comes from Leicester, from that exact, like born and brought up, Sardar. And he said, oh my God. He said, there's no difference between Leicester and the village in Punjab. When I go to my parents' village in Punjab.
Yeah. But I heard the word pinned used more in London than I have in Punjab. Like where I'm from Jalandhar, okay? And people use the word pinned less often than they do in London. Like I'm listening to BBC Asian Network on in London, and I'm like, yaar, ye pinned ti gallan ki ho rahi hai? Matlab, how is this so common here but so uncommon there?
No. So Dravida has a question about comedians in Indian movies. Dravida, do you want to ask the question? Dravida?
Lakshmi, you can go ahead and ask the question yourself.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. So let me switch on my video. My question to you, Aditi, is that what happened to comedians in Indian movies? There used to be Johnny Walkers and all these guys just vanished. You don't see any comedians in Indian movies these days. Do you have any take on this?
Yes. Oh, I have takes on everything. I'm so sorry. You're going to regret asking this question. You know, and you're so right that the history of comedians in film has been so prolific and so extensive. And I mean, forgive my Amitness, as they say, because I am desperately North Indian. But I know that down south also, you know, in Malayali films, in Kannada films, there has been a culture of comedians, and they've occupied a very prominent position. They almost equal the hero when it comes to presence and screen time. They would have their own sort of side plot happening in the film that sometimes would overpower what was happening. Like, I mean, just from recollection is, you know, apna Johnny Lever in Bazigar, which was essentially a murder mystery, which has some of the greatest comic lines of like of Indian cinema, thanks to Johnny Lever. And yeah, to be honest, I think it also has to do with the way the structure of cinema has changed. Is that you know, now we are more about, you know, tent pole and superstar, and मतलब अब तो कोई भी superstar है, मतलब अब तो तुम मतलब कपूर के घर में पैदा हो जाओ ना, even if you are like Mangesh Kapoor, you are a star. And that sort of prevents a lot of other the ensemble to have strong characters, to have strong plots in movies, which is why the comedian has now been reduced to like like it's very humshakals, it's overtly sexual, and not even in a entertaining or educating manner. It's kind of like obscene, and beyond the point. You're like, I get it, you know, come means like come, and like, you know, like, oh, uske gote means, oh nahi nahi main to bote ki baat kar raha tha, nahi nahi uske aloo, nahi nahi uske bengan. Like, beyond the point, you know, I got it that you're comparing anatomy to vegetables, and then what? um and so I think it has to do with that. Though having said that, I mean, you know, you see a lot of comedians even now who have done the, you know, who are, I mean, we're usually like the fat, slightly disheveled people who say like dumb shit, you know, to, or like for exposition, like, what, क्या तुम सचमुच पिया के पीछे सिंगापुर जाओगे? Like, just to show that, okay, now, you know, hero पिया के पीछे सिंगापुर जाने वाला है. So I think that's what it's been reduced to. And I mean, that also speaks to the general state of comedy. I mean, of like right now, I think Bollywood is like hot on remakes. It's hot on remakes. And it's the one reason that I am okay with, you know, them remaking every movie of the 90s, because it's a paycheck for Johnny Lever and Rajpal Yadav. Like, more power to them.
Yeah.
And so, Haji, you know, that's kind of my take on comedians in.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditi. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
I have a follow-up to that, actually. Do you think it all started with the hero and I think notoriously Amitabh Bachchan thinking he's funny, and now the hero wants to be the comedian as well? And
you know, I did not want to say this. But oh, we've gone there. Let's go there. So, yeah. Oh my God, exhausting, right? Because people like Johnny Lever would literally be told, you are in this film, come be funny. They weren't given scripts. They were literally like, they literally made this stuff up on the spot after watching the scene a couple of times. Now, uske baad, now the hero also wants to play funny. But the problem is, when you're a hero, you are not willing to take because when you're doing jokes or comedy, it's about status, right? It's about a change in status. And a lot of times, like, we make fun of ourselves. We make a lot of fun of ourselves, and heroes don't want to make fun of themselves. So right. all the comedy becomes this like punching down, like, you know, type A personality, aggro type, ki tu, chal, you know, ye wo. It becomes that level where, because the hero has to do comedy as well, and you can't make a joke at the hero's expense. Right. So matlab, then the real pathos in what is funny sort of disappears. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I was thinking, because I don't find Amitabh Bachchan, I don't hate me, I don't find him funny at all. I have never found him funny. I never thought he was funny in any of his movies. So, okay, cool. So actually, Vagda has a question. Vagda?
Yeah, hi. Okay, so my question is a little bit, I think, because I'm less informed, but can you tell me why stand-up comedy is something that is only getting popular now. I mean, we've had films since like so long. We've had films since before independence, but stand-up comedy, is it generally like world over a new thing? It's not, right? It's existed in America since the 50s, at least that I know of. But why is it only coming to India now? Is it aren't films, just films are so like ubiquitous, you know, you see them everywhere in every country, no matter whether you're developed or not. But this is something that's I haven't seen in like any other society other than like, you know, really developed Western nations. And now it's getting popular in India. So what's the reason for why it's come so late?
So, you know, I actually did a paper for this because, you know, if I haven't done a paper on it, I don't understand it. This is the really sad nerd in me. But you know, the sort of the history of stand-up comedy in India per se, you know, has existed ever since mass media has existed. And so I don't know if anyone here is like young enough to remember Hasya Kavi Sammelans on Air India Radio. Where it used to be Hanji. And so, I mean, that was a form of sit down comedy, right? Where it was people, you know, gadde bichha ke, beech mein mic hota tha, you know, one by one people would get up and they would go, you know, tell a funny story and the others would laugh. And, you know, I mean, that was sort of the notional idea of stand-up comedy, as it were, when it started in India. It was in 1993, I reckon, or 1997. Where we had the Great Indian Laughter Challenge. The first season was announced and they started doing auditions for it. And I think it captured the public imagination on a GEC level, as the television people put it, primarily because producers suddenly realized how little it takes to make stand-up comedy. It's just a person behind a microphone and you have like hours of content, right? And if you have 40 of them, then you have like hours multiplied by 40 of content. So it was incredibly exciting. I think what is different about what happened in 1997 so 2001, sorry, that my bad, 2001 is when it started. What is different between what happened in 2001 to 2010, which is where I think I also am very much a part of, you know, how stand-up comedy started in India, and I'm very much at the right place at the right time. I feel like if I had started like a year like later or even like 2 years earlier, I would not be sitting here talking to you. I would probably be assisting someone who was sitting here talking to you. And so what was different was that because we had the internet and because everyone was attaching opinion to it, you know, and it was very different from what was consumable on TV. What was, you know, मतलब वो जाके अपना इमरान हाशमी ने मलिका शेरावत से कहा फटे होठ तेरे, ठीक है, you know, it's वो सुनील पाल, वो that level of comedy. And I'm not saying it's a low level, by the way. I detest when people are like, you know, it's not like esoteric intelligent comedy. Everything is intelligent depending on your intelligence level. But the only different thing was, and it sort of got tied in because we were all also, you know, we grew up on the internet. It sort of got tied into a lot of the political conversation. It got tied into a lot of the gender conversation that growing online India was having, which is why I think it has gained the notoriety it has. But otherwise, you know, I think it's as compared to Western countries, why I would venture this, that it is about the nature of stand-up, right, is a person in front of a microphone. Again, no background dancers, no fancy lights. You are talking against the man, right? The idea is that, you know, because that's why it's always been like queer comics of color, who have sort of like who say things that, you know, everybody's thinking, but nobody's able to like, you know, vocalize, or nobody's able to articulate. And that's why it becomes this huge thing. So there is an element of rebellion and of course, you know, craft in it as well. And I think comedians in general just have a crap reputation, which keeps the industry afloat, frankly.
Nivedita has a question. about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Nivedita? Nivedita, you want to ask your question? Have you lost her? I hope not.
She's there.
Oh, you're on mute, Nivedita. I do this all the time. I put myself on mute and then no one hears me.
And you're like, can you ask it, Nivedita says.
Oh, okay. Cool. I'll do it for you. So you can read it. What was your and the comedy circuit's opinion on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? And I think Akanksha jumped in and said they did a local remake as well, right? So that's all like about gender comedy. So what did you think as a comedian about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? You can hate it. It's okay, Aditi.
No, I did hate it, but it's just, it's because it cuts out all the like, it sort of is, it's not really indicative of how things go at all. In fact, it's this very very bubblegum version of the stuff that goes on behind. And it feels dishonest. And that I haven't seen Marvelous Mrs. Maisel beyond the second. No, I saw the first season, and then I was like, you know what? It bums me out that her career is going so well, and mine over here, I'm living this damn thing every day. And यहाँ की मगजमारी खत्म नहीं होती और ये second season में मतलब ब्रूस लेनी के साथ दोस्ती बना के ये world tour कर रही है. And so it's too false and it's too presentational for the realities of what stand-up is, in my personal opinion. But of course, I mean, I would recommend watching all those shows. Because at least it gives people some idea of the struggles that are involved.
What about being a woman in comedy? I think that was the whole thing about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and not just about the movie now. How much more challenging is it if you're a woman?
Miss, I have attracted a lot of hate. I mean, for multiple reasons. Have you met me? But also for articulating why it is different to be a woman in comedy. You have a lot of we currently have a lot of people who want to deny it. Who want to say that no, I'm just like the guys, and it doesn't affect me at all. And because I did a paper about it, I don't know what to say. This is not really making me sound cool at all. One is, of course, you are a person. I mean, these are very masculine qualities. I mean, conventionally masculine qualities: to be ambitious, to love the sound of your own voice.
Aditi, don't hate me. Flipped again.
Oh,
don't hate me, man. Don't shoot the messenger.
Is this better, miss?
Yes.
Okay. And so the qualities that are conventionally associated with stand-up comedy are considered very masculine, right? I mean, whether it's ambition, whether it's loving the sound of your own voice, whether it's thinking that your thoughts and ideas are valuable enough to, be actually out there in front of others. It's very threatening. It's very threatening when a woman thinks of herself the way men think of themselves.
Right.
And so, then that's why I attract a lot of, I attract a lot of hate for that reason. Having said that, I mean, and now I've become one of those where I'm like, it fuels me. But also, I think the articulation of women in comedy, the various things we get accused of, whether it's like, oh, you talk too much about the sex and the boobs and the periods and the bras. My God, I hope for the next 10 generations of comedians, Indian women are talking about the sex and the boobs and the bras and the vagins, okay? Because not enough has been said about the sex and the boobs and the bras and the vagins. Not nearly enough has been said, and not enough has been heard for it to be normalized to the point that, like the other day, I mean, it's a personal story, love. I was doing a set about I was talking about drunk shopping online, and I was like, and it's drunk shopping online usually happens at that part of the night when you've already done everything you hate yourself for. Like you've eaten 2 packets of chips, you've like texted all your exes, and you've masturbated to some video where you're like, is this even sexual? But abhi chalu kar kiya hai to khatam karte hain. And I was doing, and I was thinking in my head that if a guy was on stage, he would have easily done this just as a hand motion. And I caught myself doing this. And I was like, no, that's not how I masturbate. That is not how I masturbate. But visually and theatrically, this is so much more funny than say a this. This would be like, is she okay? And so I think the language of sex and bobs and bras and sanitary napkins still belongs to men. And especially in the comedy sphere, still belongs to men, and we need to reclaim it. I think that's my, my Nari Shakti of the day.
Oh, okay. No, that's great. I like the example, I have to say. I really appreciate it.
Just like that. And I was like, Are gone? And that's not me, dude.
Plessy is one of our most avid and most loyal participants in these things. Plessy, would you want to ask your question?
Yeah, Aditi, I don't know if you can hear me, but what do you see your trajectory in comedy, short term, mid term, and long term? And one more additional question which I didn't write down. Why are you so worried about whether the children are going to watch it? Anyway, they'll watch it in YouTube if you're funny enough anyway.
No, I don't know if you heard the second part of this thing, which I said that it's much worse, so I'm not worried. That's what I mean, that was actually the joke. But anyway, that's fine. What I will do is I will answer the first part of your question. I do not know what my trajectory is. I did not start with a trajectory. And the fact that I did not at any point in time plan to do comedy. I stumbled into it and then I just clung on by my fingernails. And I have been doing it for 10 years. So now I have realized that the only way out is a dramatic suicide at age 27. And I'm 34, so that's also out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep plying my craft. The idea, and stand-up comedy is one of those things, the more you do it, the better you get. Some of the best comedians that you see, your Bill Burrs and your Norm Macdonald's and stuff, they really hit their stride when they're 50. I can't wait to see what like an Ali Wong will do when she's 50, what an Amy Schumer will do when they're 50. And so I think most comedians actually get really, really good when they're in their 40s and 50s. And so I'm just on my way to becoming great, Plassy. That's my trajectory.
Thanks.
Hi, Kelly has another question. Kelly, will you ask your question?
I'm going to read my own question from the chat box. Do you think the kind of comedy that most of us view today, like since you mentioned, since we previously discussed that stand-up comedy has become such a big thing, I mean right now as compared to the other forms, do you think it views to only like a certain demographic, or like it's catered to like this niche crowd?
Miss, this accusation can actually mutate itself across time periods and places. So for example, and the other day I was talking to a friend who's who's organizing a conference right now, and she's like, fuck this. She's like, everyone is like, organic is dead. Organic is dead. Organic is dead. It's who has the money to push their content out furthest that is going to get the most eyeballs, and that is going to be viewed as what is the reigning voice of comedy at that point in time. And I would really there are, I think for almost any kind of market, and I hate using the word market because it makes me sound like a fucking marketing person, but there are people out there. You have to seek them. But yes, this current structure, the current economic structure where there are where you will get like a Netflix show or an Amazon show or whatever, is very, very closed off. And it will be, I wouldn't say impossible, but I would say, it would take a lot of, and I come back to dick sucking. I think this there's a lot of mention of dicks, which I did not plan on. Just to clarify. But it will take a lot of that for someone to break into that market, into that part of the market. Having said that, I mean, you know, there are a dime a dozen comedy shows that happen with dime a dozen comedians that you probably haven't heard of. And I would request you, oh my God, like this is one thing, because we get stuck in celebrity syndrome for everything. We're like, agar uska naam pehle suna hai, to hi uska dekhne jayenge. Nahi yaar, comedy is also like, you know, whatever, any other craft. There are other people plying it as well. And I promise you, you will find someone you like and someone who speaks to you on an individual level. You know, if you're out there and looking.
Right. So Zoya, Zoya has a, let's hope you like this show. Zoya has another show she wants to talk to you about.
No, I don't hate them. I'm feeling really bad now. Nahi yaar, it's not me.
Zoya, you want to ask your question or should I ask it for you?
You can ask it.
No, you ask it. Why don't you ask?
So it's, I don't know if you've seen the show called Pretend It's a City, and it's about Fran Lebowitz.
Oh my God, dude.
I love Fran Lebowitz, and I don't know.
I'm gonna, one second. I think I have her book. I think my bookshelf has like 7 of her books.
Oh my.
I've like collected essays of Fran Lebowitz. She is my friggin', oh my God.
And like she just goes on a rant about the most random topics. And like for some reason, I just love that kind of humor because she's not even trying. She's literally just like talking about things. And do you think something like that would work in like Mumbai? Like, you know, I mean, you know, like, I don't know if people would really appreciate, because I keep telling my friends to watch that show and nobody understands it. They probably think that, you know, it's not mainstream. So I guess they're not that interested. But what is your take on like Fran Lebowitz and a kind of comedy?
So Fran Lebowitz is a legend. Actually, they're in my other shelf, and I've locked myself in because the dogs will come running in if I go out right now. But they're on my other bookshelf, and I'm in love with Fran Lebowitz. Wow. I read Fran Lebowitz when I was 21. You know, and she was an incredibly prolific writer. Fran Lebowitz also did not come from a stand-up comedy place. She came from a writing humor space. And also, please, I mean, here's a request: don't call anything that, like, especially when women are like don't call it a rant. Yeah, she's being hilarious, dude.
Yeah, you're right.
She's being so funny. When we get like, I know that a lot of people will be like, oh, Aditi Mittal came and ranted about sexism at the AMA's planner. Sure.
Yeah, but I don't mean like the negative connotation of like rant, but like because I rant, and I think it's a cool word, like, and it's a cool thing to do. I love it. Like,
oh yeah, we're taking the word back. You're saying, I'm here for that as well. I'm here for that as well. You know, so Fran Lebowitz, and I have not seen the show. In fact, somebody mentioned it, and I was like, "Haan, main dekhungi," and then I never got down to it. And thank you so much for reminding me, Miss. I will definitely check it out. Fran Lebowitz enters from the academic circles, which is why she has, and she's doing this. She's been doing this for like 3 decades. Sorry, Monsieur, your next part of the question was that do you think that something like this would happen in India?
Yes. I mean, would it work, that kind of comedy?
I think that someone who speaks the language of, like, I think that tone, that style, the really wry, really like, you know, like flippant, really offhand, where you're like, she's not even thinking about this. It's just coming out in the stream of like, what is happening inside her head.
Yeah.
I think that would work, ironically, if it is showcased well. Okay. But again, I am not an expert at this at all. This is, I'm answering from the place I know best, which is through my ass, which is how I talk most of the time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that answer.
You're welcome, Miss. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
It did.
Javeda, I know you have a question, but I'm going to give the others a chance and then come back to you. Prateek,
yeah, please go ahead. Yeah,
Prateek.
Yeah. Hi, Aditi, big fan.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. One is I loved your take on the Bugle. You know, when India was going through that really horrific second wave, And I mean, you kind of really balance that being somber, but with also being hilarious about, I mean, being super funny about it as well at the same time. So kind of linked to that, are there topics that you won't touch or think are sort of off limits for you personally? And second, what was your experience working with Andy Zaltzman? Is he like crazy in real life as well, or is he like the complete opposite of his personality on the show?
I love this because Andy Zaltzman is a freaking, not in the Indian sense of the word teddy bear, but he really is. He really is. I'm recording with him, in fact, again on the 11th of February for a bunch of other episodes. I met him 5 years ago when I was doing a show at Soho. And I think he happened to be passing by, and I was like, oh my God, Andy Zaltzman. And so he's like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a comedian. And so he's like, oh, I'm free tonight. I've got and he had a trial show that evening at 7 o'clock, and my show was at 8 o'clock. And we were literally in the same venue. So he said, hey, do you mind leaving a ticket out for me? I'll come and watch you because I haven't seen any comedians from India. And
Wow.
and he came and he enjoyed it. And he is kind of like Jewish neurotic. That's a really racist thing to say, I think.
No,
But
I think that
it's
embrace their neuroticism very proud.
yeah. And if I think he's been doing this so consistently for years, right? I mean, now he's on what, like episode 5,077. And I think his specialty is like, actually, in fact, after the Brexit vote, I remember we recorded an episode where I was dumbfounded because I could not understand what was going on. Okay, it was me, Andy Zaltzman, and Tom Ballard from Australia. Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean they understand the structures and the way it works there. To me, I was just like, oh my God, the world is splintering apart. I'm sitting in this bloody country while they want to like vote themselves out of a union. What is happening? And I remember sitting with him, like after the recording, first there was all like yuck, 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 yuck in the recording. And then as we were walking out, I said, Andy, I really don't understand. Like, I didn't understand too much of what I was reading, while researching for this. And would you, take a couple of minutes to explain to me? And he sat down and, we were sitting there in like a tiny, like coffee shop outside the recording studio. And he was explaining to me, how the implications that the Brexit had, how the vote sort of got passed. And it was so wonderful to see like a dad and a comedian collide. Because, in that moment, you're like, this man is also worried for the future of his children. And at the same time, he can't stop, having to separate that and go record an episode about, how ridiculously funny it is that things are going down like this. And so, I mean, Andy Zaltzman is a freaking legend. And that the COVID episode, they had to edit me down a lot. Like I was more rambly than I am right now because I was just, I couldn't understand what we were living through, to be very honest with you. And we've had a lot of that now. We've had a lot of that. Like the past 3 years, we've just had like, what are we living through? What are we living through? Every time you're like, this is ridiculous, it gets more ridiculous. And so at some point, you have to distance yourself from feeling too much and worrying too much and being like, you know what, okay, I need to look at this objectively and why is this ridiculous? If there are any subjects that I would consider, depending on who is the punchline, I feel like it's not even that I would not do it because I'm scared or anything, but like why to be racist, to be edgy? There are enough people out there doing it. May say magajmari if I should feed into the system? Why? There's a lot of there's a lot of this stuff that where now it's like if you say something really sarcastically and that's considered a joke, and I'm like, if the person who you're joking about does not know it's a joke, then there's a problem. And so those are the things I try to avoid. But otherwise, I mean, like, I don't see anything that is particularly off the table. And I mean, in any situation, I mean, for example, I don't know, like as you were saying, you heard the COVID episode, the target was the government handling of the pandemic. And I just thought of joke after joke after joke of that. Um, you know, it was,
You're not worried?
that's kind of how
You're not worried with all the stuff that's happened with Kunal Kamra, that's happened with so many comedians now in India? Um, I mean, is it there at the back of your mind ever when you see those things happening?
Hanji.
Hmm.
But I mean, like, at the end of the day, God bless my lack of significance, okay? Because I have realized, no, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Also, I've realized that people have been so incensed by things I have said that are actually in their favor. Like, I mean, I've had 10-year-old and 20-year-old, like before Twitter existed, I've had tweets screenshotted and like sort of like mangled open. कि तूने ये किया, तूने वो किया. I feel like अब कोई redemption का आर्क ही नहीं है ना. Like अभी जो है सो है, मतलब जो अभी सुनेंगे वो सुनेंगे, जो नहीं सुनेंगे वो तो मतलब कितने सालों से गुस्सा होकर निकल चुके हैं.
And just related to that, do you think, at least I think, and I don't know whether you think, I think in a democracy, you start going after humor, it's probably like the most dangerous sign for the health of a democracy, that you're not able to take a joke. More than even, I think, some of these, when they censor movies because they're sort of, for creative thing, oh, you're being insensitive to this religious sentiment, that sentiment. Chalo, theek hai, ya, wahan kar diya. But when they can't take a joke, when sort of comedy, which is also because, again, a status thing, right? Comedy should not be at the top of your list. I can see why you're very upset about a Deepika Padukone movie that perhaps many, many people will go and see. But when you start going after the comedians, first of all, it shows that you're feeling extremely threatened and you can't take a joke. So I don't know how you feel about that.
There's also like a whole back end system of this where there is always some guy like who is like a party worker who then wants to like climb up the ranks and wants to do it like in 5 minutes. So then they'll go look up some video. Like, I don't know if I should say this, right? But like, it was an evening of one of those. There was a guy, somebody sent me a video, okay? But there was this guy who was like, if I get 10,000 subscribers, and there was some line some joke I had made in 2017, uska kaat koot ke usne ek aisa clip dikha tha ki if I get 10,000 likes on this video, I will file a case against her. And I was like, yay. Now here's the catch-22, right? Because if I take this video and I'm like, oh my God, guys, someone's threatening to file a case against me, it's probably going to be beamed out to, of course, people who are well-wishers and will be like, no, it's not that bad. Or some people who will try to explain the joke and say it's not offensive. But it will also beam it out to thousands who will be like, this is our chance.
Right.
So I shut the hell up about it. And last check, which was about 2-3 years ago, it's at some like 6,000 likes. And I haven't heard about that FIR yet. But there is a lot of, like, it's somebody trying to get up in the political ranks. So they'll go tell their leader कि देखो उसने वो बोला, फिर उसके basis पे थोड़ा outrage stir होगा. I mean, for a comedian also it's great, yeah. मतलब career जो चमक जाता है ना उसके बाद, because लोग इतना मतलब sympathize करते कि oh my God, इसको तो बड़ी गालियां मिल रही है. You become the sort of holding pin for so many, like, the freedom of speech, the the nature of democracy, and you're like, हाँ ठीक है भाई, ticket ले, खरीद के क्यों देखने आओ? 300 रुपए बन रहे हैं.
Akanksha has a question. Akanksha?
Sorry, I'm sitting in a place with poor lighting, so you just have to excuse my video. But my question actually is that, what with like all these online platforms now having super short formats like your TikTok videos or reels, etc. Do you and so many of us are used to seeing everyone trying their hand at something funny, something comedic there. Do you think that impacts the kind of attention span and things that audiences bring to your sets? Do you find yourself like checking the tempo or the pace of, because I've seen so many of this set that like I've seen online or even live, right? There's a slow build up. Like Nanette, for example, comes to mind, right? There is or Alaya Wong also. There is a build up. But do you think audiences have the patience for that anymore? Do you find yourself sort of changing how you pace things out?
I can. I think everything has its place on some level, and on another level, but like online platforms, for example, like even on YouTube and all, at one point they were encouraging us to do long videos. Like they were like, do put out a 16-minute video. I was like, मैं ना सुनूं खुद को 16 minutes के लिए, और तुम चाहते हो कि मैं जाके वहां पे 16 minute के लिए है मतलब make twerky eyes at the audience की इस पे हंसो या मेरे मतलब मुद्दे पे बात कर रही हूँ. I found that a bit absurd. Even back then, but now it has changed. Now even online platforms that were earlier doing like 1 hour specials have now been like, give us 10 comedians and make them do 5 minutes each. We had even Amazon has used that format, even Netflix has used that format, where they're like, you know what, now instead of giving your favorite comedian 60 minutes, we're going to take 12 of your favorite comedians, and so all 12 of your audiences will be watching this. I think that's, and it's a very MBA way of looking at things, but it is what it is,
But then do you lose the great comedians? I mean, at some level, like whether it's an Eddie Murphy or, the 1 hour special where they really got to sort of build, right? They built stories, they took time, and, there'll be one joke and you think they're done with it, and then they would take it to the next level.
Comes back later. Yeah.
Really, they would build it, right? There's a tempo there. So do you miss that? I mean, having that opportunity, like at least online, but you do that in stand-up, I assume. I mean, in offline, right?
Hanji, miss. And in fact, the 1 hour format actually came from England because the club format, which is what it's called, where you do 10 minutes of various acts. So it's a night with 7 acts. And the audience gets to see a bit of everything and everyone. The English actually came up with a 1 hour format because of the way festivals and comedy festivals were organized, right? Because you needed to program for 30 days. Okay, if you're going to put everybody up on one day, you could have like 29 days of programming that you need to fulfill. And so it sort of became a 1 hour, 1.5 hour storytelling format. And then of course, we see like, what's her name? Second one, what's her name? I mean, you mentioned Nanette. Why the fuck do I not know? How do I not know her name? Hannah Gadsby's second special.
Yeah.
Hannah Gadsby's second special, which is called, oh my God.
It's the dog. Even I'm forgetting.
Yes. Yeah, fuck. Rudolph, Maya.
No, after Nanette.
No, after Nanette. Yeah. Rudolph. Shit. Oh, fuck. Okay. That
Douglas?
One. Douglas. Thank you. And so she opens that set, okay, at the top of the hour. She says, I'm going to do 3 jokes about Louis C.K. And I'm telling you, you forget, because she does one. And then she says, okay, I'm going to move on. And she does other topics. She talks about other things. And then she comes back to the second one. And she's like, see, you didn't even remember that I was telling you. And that became the third joke, because we were like, oh, fuck, that's right. Like she managed to pull it back from an hour ago to now. And then she ended it with a Louis C.K. joke as well, which was like just off the charts, brilliant. I mean, I would honestly say that Nanette was powerful for the commentary it offered on the nature of art and performance and even stand-up comedy, where you are within the art form and you are offering commentary on it, which is really cool. But Douglas, ma'am, is shining. Didi is a fucking class A comedian. You know, matlab, like this, it's incredible. So, I mean, please watch that if anyone has the time.
Davida, so we have time for your question, and then I think Sarah has a question. And then we're going to have to let Aditi go. She has a stand-up today in Bandra.
Fuck, huh? I forgot only. I was very excited. Miss. Told you. Sound of my own voice. Love it.
Davida, you want to ask your question?
Aditi, I want to check whether you guys have a script before you start a show, or you just go on whatever comes to your mind. This was my first question. Second question is there some regulation around your content? Is there something, or it's okay to go whatever you want to say?
So this is my script for tonight. And it depends on person to person, right? I am a little, I don't know, this is also not boding very well for my coolness levels, because I start by writing every word I want to say. And then I go say it all. And then I'll, for this is a 10-minute set, which is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, which is about 2 minutes per page. I have written, this started off as like a 28-page rant about, online shopping or whatever. And then I took chunks of it. I tried them out on stage where you say them out, you see what gets a laugh. And then you cut. So, so from 28 minutes, it's come down to about 9.5 minutes. And that's sort of the formation of a set. You have to make it the tightest that you can. Use the minimum number of words to get to the funny part. Get to the funny part before everybody in the audience sitting in front of you gets to it. So I am personally the type that, I have a script and everything, but there are also comedians who have a thought. And I've done that as well. I just feel like I'm not, I've done that as well. I don't like doing it. I don't like the inner performer in me hates going up unprepared. Hates acting like I feel like I'm taking the audience for granted. If I'm like, chal, today I'll talk about aloo puri. So guys, what's the deal with aloo puri? I feel like, even if I think aloo puri is hilarious, I want to put down something that I know, and then I will, I'll get myself to know that thing really well, and then I will throw away the script and I will have fun. And because it's that same thing, where you have to know the rules to break them. So I make my rules, I memorize them, and then I break them. Wow. That's kind of my general structure so far. Jian, sorry, and your last question, second question was, is there a regulation? 99% of it is self-regulation, and then depending on the kind of platform that you have been commissioned by, they have rules. You can't talk about this one, you can't talk about that one. Guys, either they're doing a trade deal with them, and so you shut up. You can't fucking smack talk them on the platform that is trying to get money from them. It depends on the kind of constraints that are presented to you for a corporate thing. It depends on the constraints presented to you by the client. When it comes to yourself, I think that for me there are 3 layers of sensors that I put on myself, and I recognize them now. I recognize the layers of sensors. Because I'm actively applying them on myself, I don't know how much I apply them and how much I don't apply them. But the 3 layers are, one is, what will the world think? And that one has been shut down for a while. I think it 2 years ago or 4 years ago is when I achieved peak not giving a fuck. Where I was like, वैसे भी मतलब कोई मेरे मामे चाचे नहीं, मेरे को कोई खाना नहीं खिला रहा मेरे को. I'm paying on my own bills, and so the world can say what it wants. I have no explanations to give to anybody. The 5 people who I love know me and support me, and I'm making enough to make rent and feed the dogs, and I'm good. The second one is, of course, what will family say? I am an adopted child, and I by a single mother. She never got married. From she was born in 1952, and she never got married through the 70s and through the 80s, and the kind of stuff that she's got a thick, she's got a skin thicker than, you know, the Central Vista walls. Okay, like she don't care at all, and I think that's where I've gotten it from. And so she really, in fact, I'm not gonna lie, she probably doesn't even pay attention half the time I talk at home. So I doubt she's listening when I'm talking outside. And so that is the second sensor. And then, of course, there is the third sensor, which is the self sensor, where I decide that I do not want to be perceived in a certain way. One. Two, I do not want to attract a certain kind of attention. Even though it might bring me notoriety and fame and money, there is a certain kind of attention I do not want to attract because, you know, maybe, matlab, like I have a very, very bloated impression of myself, which keeps me alive. And so it's not that terrible. I think I recommend it as an exercise for everybody. Those are the three layers. I apply them at various points, at various levels, and yeah, that's kind of like the censorship that exists.
Thank
And of
you.
course, if there's a
Thank you.
police outside, oh, you're welcome. You know, I mean, also may I share? You know, like this is a couple of years ago. Somebody showed up outside my mother's office, being like, "Hey, you know, hame unse baat karne ka hai." And also, my mother went out. She's like, "Yeah." So they were like, "Aapki beti na internet pe bakwas kar rahi hai." And so my mother looks at him and she's like, "वो घर पे भी बकवास करती है, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकती." I was like, oh my God. I mean, I realized also I am, you know, sort of like I've come from, you know, I'm nurtured by her. So I'm very, very like thick-skinned and like, I mean, I wouldn't say strong, but I would say like, well, the forbearance levels are very high. And so, you know, it's helped. It's helped to have a very, very permissive family environment where people love and trust you.
Oh, what a brilliant story. It's so great to know that about you and your mom.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Aditi.
she's insane. Thank you. Sorry, I rambled.
Sarah, we're going to end with you. So,
Yeah.
Sarah is part of the Splendid team.
I think you sort of answered it, but the flip side, like you said, the comedy grew a lot with the internet. But the flip side, do you very often face your bits on the internet being taken wildly out of context?
Yeah.
So how do you
Yeah.
deal with that? Like,
You know, and so two answers to that. One, I don't. You should see the way my block lists. I have like wherever there has been a Twitter block list, I have downloaded it and blocked. नहीं मांगते हैं तुम्हारे कीच तुम्हारा valid criticism. If anyone really cared so validly to criticize me, they would come and give me my valid criticism in an inbox or in an email or whatever. And nahi. Otherwise, just people who are like, you know, ye boobs ke bras ke bare mein kyun nahi bye. That I have like literally, I think I'm living in a little bit of a utopia in my own head where I'm like, oh, this is, you know, I at least the stuff that used to really get to me like a couple of years ago when the internet also wasn't. Now everyone is like, be kind, you know, be nice to each other and all. That time it wasn't there. That time it was a free for all. Matlab, you know, अरे ये तो जिसका अच्छा, you know, उसने उसको करारा जवाब दिया, उसने उसको टाइट स्लैप दिया, तब तो वो सब चल रहा था इंटरनेट पे. And it was genuinely it messed with my self-esteem for a very long time. And so my way to survive it was to kind of like block it out. And I will say this, I mean, please, if as I said, please feel free to criticize me. I don't know if I will change, but I will definitely listen. So that's one, as I don't. And then the second one is I listen. I also have a personal journey, which my, you know, people that have apparently valid criticisms don't understand, or I don't want them to be privy to, which affects my actions or my content in a certain way. And that's just it. Like, I'm not gonna, I just, there's that jumping through hoops thing, you know, to please everybody. You're gonna try and please everybody, you're gonna please nobody. And so I decided that the person who sleeps in the night with their eye, you know, the last person I talk to in the night when I close my eyes to sleep, which is me, I please that person.
that makes sense.
Yeah, in general, anyway, I feel like Twitter's like not a funny place anymore. Like you can't say anything without someone getting.
Yeah, Twitter's mad.
I have to keep, you know, there's so many times I want to tweet something funny out, and I'm like, no, Lakshmi, no, shut up. Someone's going to.
You know, I mean, and it's so scary because we grew up on the internet where we didn't like Twitter now has turned into this place where it's all like, you know, If you say like I like oranges, then the Watermelon Federation is going to be like fuck you, and then like, but you're like, why? What did I do, man? Like one that I have, the one story that I tell, and I tell it, I don't know why. Okay, because it never bodes well for me. Is I was tweeting about something happened, and there was some Aishwarya Rai thing where Aishwarya Rai ko koi wo hai, क्या है वो कि वो मांगलिक है, something article was there.
She had to be married to a tree.
So then I said something. I said, oh, and something, and I didn't even tag Abhishek Bachchan. But Abhishek Bachchan, who name searches him damn self on friggin' Twitter, finds the tweet and starts responding. Okay, so then I was like, and I was folding my clothes or something, so I wasn't even fully like on my computer. So I was like, ha, okay, great. Oh जी, मैं सुबह उठी, मेरा बाप मेरे को फोन कर रहा है. Excuse me, बेटा, आप बच्चन के बच्चों के साथ क्यों झगड़ा शुरू कर रहे हो? ऐसे कौन बच्चन, किसका बच्चा, कैसा झगड़ा? बच्चन के पीआर ने he had basically taken that and then like splashed it all over the internet that, oh look, like whatever these Bollywood life and high heel whatever that, I don't even know what the various ones are, कि देखो तो Abhishek Bachchan's करारा जवाब too, and I was like, what? I have never felt more like misunderstood and felt like my own narrative was snatched away from me for someone else's PR. And then it happened continuously. Then I was like, abhi redemption तो है नहीं, ले लो जो भी है, misunderstand कर लो, अब तो मेरे माँ बाप भी जानते हैं तो.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Aditi. It has been so much fun. So
thank you so much for having me, Miss. I really appreciate it, and I'm so sorry I have to run.
No. And I don't know why you don't ad-lib, because you're terribly funny even without, any prep. So,
I do ad-lib a lot. But it's mostly me being like, oh, fuck, why? Oh, fuck, why? As soon as it leaves my mouth, I'm like, oh, how do I take it back and put it back in my mouth? Which also I should not say in public. But thank you so much for having me, Miss. And Miss, may I plug my next show,
yes,
if it's possible?
Please.
Thank you. Miss, my next show is on October 2nd. It's a Zoom show, so you can join anywhere in the world. And it's called Unreliable Narrator, because I'm talking about all the unreliable narration that we are experiencing in the world today. And also everyone subscribe to Splainer.in, gift a subscription to a friend. Honestly, I have gifted one to a friend. And she was one of those who was very proud of being like, I don't read the news and I'm just a happy person and all that stuff. And her mind has been blown. And so subscribe, like, share, and sorry.
Wonderful. And Aditi, if you send it to us, we can put it in the edition just before the show or like around when you like, and then we can plug it. And
yes, ma'am. Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Bye. And all the best. Break a leg at your show.
Thank you.
Bye.